but it is definitely my why, and creating that time freedom to be able to spend with my family and transitioning out of that full-time work, and again focusing on family and that generational wealth piece.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Kris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Kris Toribio with the Freedom Investing Podcast, and I'm so happy you're here to join us for another amazing episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Moving on to today's guest, we have Aaron Neville. Aaron is the CEO of Go-Ape Properties, with a current focus on single-family and short-term rentals, as well as an interest in multifamily. Aaron is a registered nurse based near Toronto, Canada, but invests in the United States. Aaron, welcome to the show. Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, your background, and where you are in your journey to achieving time freedom.
Hi, Kris. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate that. And I'm, like Kris mentioned, I'm a couple hours from Toronto in Canada, and I'm working as a registered nurse. I've done that for 18 or 19 years now, I guess, and slowly transitioning out of that and started investing in real estate in Canada, and then transitioned into the US market. And like Kris said, we're mostly focusing on single family rentals right now, and also have a great interest in multifamily. So currently looking at a couple multifamily properties now, actually, and moving forward with that, and hopefully with that goal of transitioning out of my full-time job.
That's great, Aaron. So, we come from a very similar space. We have a background as healthcare providers. I'm a nurse anesthetist. One of our partners is a nurse practitioner. And we kind of underwent the same type of journey from transitioning from healthcare into real estate. Can you kind of talk to us about what shifted you into wanting to pick real estate as your asset class of choice, and how you went about starting that transition in the first place?
I was just always interested in real estate. I know the power of real estate investing and leveraging other people's money and the bank, and just being able to grow and scale, and the opportunities that were there. And I never, up until a few years ago, was our first rental property that we finally got into, and it didn't go as planned at first. It was kind of a bumpy road at first, but it worked out. But I think the big thing was being surrounded by other people doing similar things in real estate, and being involved in networking with people. Just so we were able to just continue to move forward. And I just know there's a lot of opportunity in real estate, and actually just going down that journey, there's just so many things. Sometimes almost too much at times. Start getting unfocused in different areas, because there's just so much with multifamily, single family, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, self-storage is a big one now. There's just so many opportunities out there. So,
absolutely. We always say that there's so many different ways that you can be successful when it comes to real estate investing. A lot of times you just really have to pick one that you feel resonates with you, or you feel may present the best opportunity for you based off of your current networking skill set, and just focusing and niching down on that. Because if you're able to just simply focus, as opposed to having that sort of shiny object syndrome, and taking a look at these other opportunities and never really being an expert in one, it can really save yourself a lot of time. And so you mentioned something that really stuck out to me, and that was recognizing that you just surround yourself with other people who are more successful than you in this space. We kind of went through this similar journey as well when we started up our real estate meetup here in Chicago called Windy City REI. And where it really started from was truthfully a selfish standpoint. What we wanted to kind of make sure that we had full control over our education, and we wanted to be able to pick and choose the people who kind of fill in those gaps. In your case, did you find that attending other local meetups in the area was the most helpful? How did you go about kind of positioning yourself so that way you were surrounded by the people that had the knowledge that you were looking for?
Yeah, definitely. At first, it was those local real estate networking groups and being involved in those, and then branching out from there and getting some coaching and some mentorship. And then once I was looking at transitioning to the US market, it was a big learning curve for me, and it was just challenging to not know exactly where to go first, kind of thing. So I got involved with Mike Wolf and his mentorship program, and he's been investing in the US for he's Canadian and investing there for over 20 years. So I just, again, got involved in that group, and all the people in that, quite a few people in there that I could just use as they're just very helpful, and they've been there and done that, and they're doing it currently. Some are new, some are very experienced. So it's just great to even get all the knowledge from them and encouragement from them and support, and just know that moving in the right direction. And because there are other things as far as just taxes and structuring everything from being Canadian into the US, and then doing it virtually or remotely was another challenge. Kind of a mindset shift that I had to get my mind around that it was possible. And
yeah, that's one of the things I really want to dive deeper into, actually, is because not only are you coming from a completely different industry, right? You were a registered nurse. You knew the importance of real estate and wanted to be a real estate investor at some point. You started out with your first single family out of Canada. And then now on top of that, you're investing in a completely different country. So walk us through kind of that transition. Like how was your experience with your first rental property, if you're willing to kind of dive a little deeper into that? And then from there, what made you choose the US as the second type of market of choice for you to kind of shift your investing strategy into?
Yeah, our first rental property, like I mentioned, it wasn't local. It was in Ontario, but it was about an hour and a half from where I'm living. And even that was a mindset shift for me. Was just, I kind of had that mindset that I had to invest locally so that I could oversee the property and do everything myself. But with some networking in those groups, I realized that you didn't have to do that. And the numbers made more sense with this property, which was an hour and a half away. But even from the very beginning, the lending didn't go as planned. There were some problems there, but we got through that. And then our very first tenant didn't work out well either. And we ended up giving her, I think, I'd ended up paying her to leave, basically. And now it's all shifted. And there was actually a problem with the contractor as well. It didn't go as smoothly as I wanted, anyway. So there was just all these hiccups along the way, but it was actually good because it all happened with that very first property, and now it's moving along very well, and it'll continue. You're going to have properties that are and situations like that moving forward. So got that out of the way on the first one, and then as far as the US, I was just the market in Canada appreciating so much. The numbers just didn't make sense to me. It was a lot more difficult to get cash flowing properties. I was looking at single family rentals. So you could get that appreciation, which is huge, a huge factor and part of it. But I didn't want negative cash flow every month, and I couldn't afford that actually. So I started to look at the US, and it just made a lot more sense. Obviously, it's a huge country, and every market is slightly different. But there's markets where you can get in. Like I'm focused on Kansas City market right now, so the median home price was below the national average. So you could get in at a good price. Also, with the U.S., in Canada, I guess one province, maybe Alberta, is more landlord friendly, but the rest, in Ontario especially, is more tenant friendly, I would say. So looking at the states again and knowing that certain markets and states are more landlord friendly. So obviously, if you can, if you have a problem with a tenant, then you can turn that over and not affect you as much. Like here, you could literally have somebody in your property, and I've heard that about California, for instance, where they could stay for almost a year without, paying any rent. So, yeah, right. So, and then also it was interesting to find out about the difference in, like, there's a Freedom of Information Act and then the Privacy of Information Act. And it's a lot harder in Canada to find out information about homeowners and property owners, even multifamily, and getting that information where you might be able to find people that are motivated or more motivated to sell their property or interested in selling their property. So that was another factor that was interesting at first. And it's just, it is a lot different with the software and things that you can find out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have one of the original members of our real estate meetup here in Chicago. He's actually from Canada as well, and he owns 2 rental properties out there. And what he was describing is very similar to what you described, in that the reason why he stopped investing over there is because it was becoming more and more difficult for the numbers to make sense. Now, with that being said, the properties that he did already own over there, as you're saying, just really appreciated a lot over the past few years, and has kind of given him this opportunity to tap into and leverage as he wants to scale over here in the United States. And over here in Chicago, it's very similar. You had described kind of like your first deal in kind of vacating one of the non-paying tenants that you had was to essentially pay them. We refer to that as cash for keys.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have kind of this emotional thought behind it, in the sense that, like, oh, why would I ever pay a tenant to leave? But ultimately, it's a business decision, right? Because when you consider how many more months of missed rent that you're losing out on because you have a tenant that's over there not paying, sometimes it's actually cheaper to just simply entice them to pay that for them to leave, as opposed to just trying to do it through the entire way of the legal system, which, as we know, can be very difficult at times.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely a business decision, and it was a good one. The next tenant we've had in there now since, and it's gone
great.
really well. So
now, one of the things you also mentioned was your current focus is single family, but you're also doing some short-term rentals. How did you kind of tap into that space, and where are these properties kind of located?
We're just starting with the short-term rentals in that space. I am looking in Florida, being Canadian. There's a lot of interest in the Florida market as well as the Arizona market, and also in the U.S. Just those markets are great short-term rental areas. So I am finding, we're just trying to find the right property moving forward. With the short-term rental space, there's definitely, you can obviously get more monthly income and increase that return on investment. So that's where I'm looking in those areas. There's a property in Kansas City that hopefully I'll find out more about this week, and it's in a really good area for possibly a short-term rental. So hopefully that'll work out, and we'll move forward from there, and just basing the numbers on those long-term rents. And then if we can move into the short-term rental, it'll make sense that way.
Yep, and just increase your returns, as you were saying, as a trade off for kind of managing a little bit more actively. And
Hmm.
so, one of the things, Aaron, that we talked about before we actually got on this call was that you've come to realize that you don't have to do everything yourself. And so, can you kind of describe what the situation looked like with your investments before you had that mindset shift, and what your current plan is moving forward after that shift kind of occurred?
Yeah, definitely. Just with that mindset of being local, having the investment there, where my thought process was that I would manage the property and take care of everything moving forward. So, um, again, going back to time freedom, I would definitely suggest getting a property manager, even if it's local. I had people suggest that to me, and I didn't listen to that part. I just thought, oh, I'll try it. And yeah, it was just having that shift and paying that percentage monthly just frees up a lot of time. And again, with transitioning into the US market, obviously I'm not there. So I have to build these teams to manage the property. But again, that frees up my time because I can't just go to the property and fix a toilet or whatever the case may be. I just rely on other people. And again, with that too comes a shift of you don't want to be. I know my one mentor, Mike Wolf, talked about how he had a property manager, and then he was spending a lot of time at first managing that, trying to micromanage that property manager. So just having trust and making sure that you get a good property manager, and then you can be a lot more hands off and increase that time. So
Yeah, focusing on the important parts of your business, which is scaling, finding more properties, underwriting more deals, as opposed to
right.
managing, the day to day. That's great. And Aaron, you are actually working full time as a registered nurse still while we're doing all this?
I am.
Wow.
So,
So you're busy. So when it comes to kind of separating your business when it comes to as opposed to your work, how does your schedule kind of look like right now?
it has been helpful in the sense that it's, as you're probably aware, like the 12-hour shifts. So when you're there, you're there. But then I do find that easier that I have my days off, more days off, so I can take part of those days and focus on the real estate side of things. So, and my wife is also helping out a lot, so that's helpful as well. And we did have a VA hired for a short time. We're transitioning out of that right now, but so that was helpful as well to help with that.
Yeah, I just recently also kind of changed my schedule at work from working 4 10-hour shifts to now working 3 12-hour shifts. And I didn't really realize how much of an impact that would make, both from just my personal life, how I feel on a regular basis, as well as the effectiveness I have on my business. Because as you're saying, having that extra day or two off during the week um, allows you to focus on the task at hand, as opposed to constantly making that transition from wearing one hat to another. At
Mhm.
least when you wake up one day when you're off, you understand that, like, all right, this is a day that I'm going to work on my business. This is not a day that I'm going to be working as a registered nurse. And so your entire mindset and identity can be focused on one thing, as opposed to trying to make that transition.
Mhm.
And so can you kind of describe to us a little bit about, um, hiring out this property manager? You were saying that by making sure that you have the property manager in place that you can trust, that will really be the one that kind of allows you to transition out and have a little bit more time for yourself. So what does your vetting process kind of look like for that property manager?
Um, well, at first it was because it was in a totally different market, being involved in the different real estate groups and being involved with other investors in that local market and getting referrals from them, who they've used, and then just starting out there really, and then getting two or three. If we're focused on property management, so I had two or three that kept coming up, and just reaching out to them and then having an interview with them basically, and finding out how their business runs, and what services they provide, and having access online to all their portals and different things that make it easier that way. And again, just going through that process of interviewing them and asking those questions about what happens if in different situations, and just getting a feel for it that way and going with one of them. So right now,
Yeah, I mean that's huge, and you kind of mentioned one thing too there, which was the technology and the systems that they have available. We are so lucky to be in a day and age where we don't have to have someone, whether that be us or someone else, go to each and every one of your properties and each and every one of your units once every month to collect rent, and then go to the bank and then deposit those checks or deposit all that cash. We are so lucky to have technology available to us where we can do this from a distance. We can do it more hands off. We can make things as automated as possible, and really understanding that you have to, even though that comes at a cost, when you think about it from the value of what your time is, it really is a no-brainer. And so, Aaron, we're coming towards the end of today's show, but before we finish, it is time for the Freedom 5. So these are 5 questions that we ask every guest on our show, starting with the most important question: what is your why? What is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do?
Definitely my family, and trying to creating that generational wealth. I know that's probably a generic answer you might get, but it is definitely my why, and creating that time freedom to be able to spend with my family and transitioning out of that full-time work, and again, focusing on family and that generational wealth piece.
That's great. Second question we have here is, what book has had the largest influence on your life?
Again, probably get this answer with real estate a lot, but that Rich Dad Poor Dad for me was one of the first books that I was introduced to. And then actually I got one up here, Who Not How, and I'm trying to think of the author of that now, Ian Sullivan, yeah. So that actually had a huge impact as well, just knowing that, especially with doing all this remotely, it just helps to have that team in place and have other people.
Absolutely. And I should probably start prefacing this question with what book besides Rich Dad Poor Dad has had the largest influence on your life? Because I got to tell you, every single person on the show, and there's a reason for it, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why this book has been referred to as a purple Bible, because of the amount of people that it's positively affected and the lives that it was capable of changing. And the 2 books that you listed right there, Rich Dad Poor Dad and Who Not How, I would argue that those 2 books have actually been the most impactful on our business as well, just because of the mindset shift that allowed us to have, not necessarily strategy or anything related to real estate, which is actually pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, for myself, I mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I didn't have any real estate investors in my family. I wasn't in school, like is pointed out in Rich Dad Poor Dad, it didn't really teach me that mindset shift about money. So it did have a huge shift in my direction, and thought about business and money and moving forward that way.
So. Absolutely. No, it's great. The third question we have here is, what is the most impactful thing, whether that be a piece of technology, a habit, or a person, that has helped in freeing up your time?
Yeah, we'll go on to the next one. I can't think of an answer for that.
Okay, we'll go back to that one. Number 4, what is the number 1 piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time?
For me, a lot was getting that mindset shift and getting coaches and mentors and growing from there, and having those networking and putting teams in place as far as business goes, and freeing up your time that way, knowing that there's other people that can probably do a better job than me, And so hiring them for those spot positions is not only going to free up my time, but it's also going to probably improve my business as well.
Absolutely. And so on that note, if you were to kind of think about something that was the most impactful, whether it was a piece of technology or a habit or a person in your network that has helped you when it came to freeing up your time, what would you think it is?
I guess, again, teams, building, having other people, and not doing it all myself, and knowing that you can rely on other people to grow and scale.
That's great. All right, Aaron, the fifth and final question here is, what is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
You can reach me at my email, Go-Ape Neville, Neville, at gmail.com. That's probably the easiest, I guess.
Perfect. Well, Aaron, lots of really great information today. I liked how you talked about your transition into real estate as a registered nurse, working full-time, starting out in the single-family space, transitioning to some short-term rentals, as well as multifamily investing outside of the country. I also liked how you talked about the systems that you had in place, as well as the mindset shift when you came to realize that you didn't have to do all of this yourself. I also really liked how you talked about the importance of having a mentor and having these people in your network that have the experience that you're looking for, so that way you can help exponentially increase your growth in your business. So I just want to thank you again for being a great guest, and I really look forward to remaining in touch.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Now, if you like this show and want to learn more about how we can help you free up your time through passive real estate investments, check out www.freedominvesting.com. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Kris Toribio. Till next time.